Do you have absolutely no idea what is going on in Lightroom? Have you discovered that color theory is illogical, meaningless, and insane? Well, you are in luck because you have found this video. Welcome to Coloring in Progress. This channel and this series is going to be dedicated to teaching you young, novice, inexperienced photographers how to edit in Lightroom. I'm going to teach you guys how to learn how to edit in Lightroom because that's very important. Now guys, I got to tell you, I've seen a lot of great photographers that do not know how to edit, and it's so sad because their pictures are amazing, but they don't know what they're doing in Lightroom. So the way that I'm going to teach all of you how to learn is going to be by teaching myself something that I don't fully understand. Everybody say it with me: color theory. Every single week, I'm going to break down a YouTube video on color theory, videos that anybody with internet access can find, and I'm going to tell you guys what I learned, what my key takeaways are, and then I'm going to go into Lightroom and edit my own photos using the techniques that I learned from those videos. By doing that, I'm hoping that you guys will get a better understanding of how to learn something about photography. It's not an easy thing to do, and a lot of photographers don't master it when they really should, because it is the foundation of becoming a good photographer. But before we get into that, I need to show all of you inexperienced and new photographers how Lightroom works, because I'm assuming most of you probably don't know how to do that. So I am on a MacBook Air, and this is Lightroom Classic. Now I have a lovely picture of this random bicycle that I found on a university campus a while back. We're gonna go to this Develop tab right here, and you can see we have all these different sliders, all these different panels. What the heck is all of this stuff? Well, I'm gonna tell you. Now, I cannot explain to you guys how to properly edit a picture without telling you what this thing right here is. This is a histogram, and a histogram is a graph that will show you every single pixel on a scale from absolute black to dark to midtones to bright to absolute white. So as you can see, we have a lot of pixels on this left side, which is probably because of this area right here. But if you look really closely right here, you see this little blip of white, and what that is clipping. Now, clipping is when you have absolutely no information because either your highlights are blown out or your shadows are too dark. If you wanted to see where these are in an image, you can press this and this, and the highlights that are blown out are going to show up in red, and the shadows that are too dark are going to show up in blue. Now, we don't have any blue, but you can see up in this top right corner that we do have some red, and so one way that we can fix that is by going to our exposure slider. So if we try and bring this down, sometimes you'll see it go away, and it did a little bit, but not entirely. You see, we still have this big red blob. So I'm going to bring this back, and I'm going to go to this highlight slider. You'll notice that when you hover over any one of these four sliders, it will show you up on this histogram the area that it corresponds to. And as you can see, the highlights are going to be this area right here, which we don't have a lot of stuff in, but I'm going to bring these down, and as you can see, all of this red will start to go away. Now, of course, there's still a little bit of splotches here and there, so I'm going to take these whites and bring them down just a bit, and now it's all gone, and that's really good because that means we have information in this part of the image. Now, the exposure slider is going to control the brightness or darkness of every single pixel in the image, whereas highlights are only going to control this area of your image, shadows are only going to control this area of your image, whites will only control this area, and the blacks will only control this area. Now, the contrast slider is a little bit different. If you bring it to the right, you can increase the amount of contrast that you have in an image. If you bring it to the left, you can decrease the amount of contrast that you have in an image. What contrast is the difference between the brightest and the darkest point of your image. If you have a high contrast photo, that means that you have a photo with very bright parts and very dark parts, and ideally a lot of stuff in between as well. What this will look like on a histogram is all of this white will be spread out across this entire graph more evenly. And so if we increase this contrast slider, you'll see that the brights will get brighter and the darks will get darker. But if we decrease it, it will all sort of even out and it becomes a really flat look. Generally speaking, you want as much contrast as possible in a picture. But if we take this all the way over and we get rid of these things right here, you can see that it looks very over edited. And obviously you don't want that. So as with any slider in Lightroom, you want to be moderate. So I'm going to increase the contrast just a little bit, and I'm not going to try and overdo it because I don't want anything to get blown out. As you can see, if I do this and I turn these back on, we now have highlights and shadows that are blown out. So I'm going to leave it right at 25 there, and I think that that looks pretty good. Now the shadows I'm going to increase a bit because like I said, we have a lot of pixels on this side of our histogram. So if I bring these shadows up, you can see that they start to move towards this right side, and that's what we want. We want more contrast in our picture, which means that everything is more spread out. Now the whites and the blacks you can kind of think as an exposure slider, except like I said, they are going to be limited to just these two parts of your image. So where the exposure slider will increase or decrease every single pixel's brightness in the entire image, the whites will only control the brightness or the darkness of the whites, and the blacks will only control the brightness or darkness of the blacks. So I think I'm going to take these whites down just a hair, and I'm actually going to bring these blacks up, which I know reduces a bit of contrast, so maybe I'll add some more back in. But what this does is it gives a fade to the image, and I like the way that that looks. And there is another way to do it on the tone curve, but I will get into that in just a second. Now we're moving on to vibrance and saturation. So these are going to control the amount of color in your image, but they're going to do it in two different ways. So vibrance is going to control the muted and the more saturated colors independently. What that means is if you increase the vibrance, you can see that more muted colors in your image will actually get more saturated, whereas the already saturated colors will largely stay the same. And if you decrease vibrance, it will do the opposite. It will decrease the more saturated colors a lot more than the more muted colors. So this is a very even way to apply saturation to a photo. And I think I'm going to bring this up just a little bit. Now, saturation is going to do the same thing as vibrance, except it doesn't have any favorites. It's going to apply the same amount of saturation to every single pixel in your picture. It's kind of like the exposure slider, just for color instead. Now we have the tone curve. So the tone curve is actually built like a histogram. As you can see, this is lined up with what we have on our histogram up here, but this is another way that you can control the tone of your image, hence why it's called a tone curve. Now the way that I like to use this is by applying points at each of these corners in these boxes. And what this is going to do is give you more control over the blacks, shadows, midtones, highlights, and whites of your image. Now, what I usually like to do is apply something that's called an S-curve. So what that means is I'm going to bring this up a little bit, which is doing the same thing as increasing this black slider. So I'm again giving this image a slight fade to it because I like the look of it, but then maybe I'll bring this back down just to add a bit more contrast back to the image, and then you can either bring this point up or down. In this case, I think I'm going to bring this down just a bit to add contrast, and then you can bring this point up or down. In this case, I'm going to bring it up just slightly to add some more contrast. This one you can bring up or down, and in this case, I'm going to bring this slightly up, and this one you can move up or down, and I think this looks a lot better if I bring it up. And then normally I will bring down these whites just so I don't have any clipping and I don't have any absolute whites. But you can see if I bring this back up, watch the difference between this white right here. You'll see it becomes a little bit more gray as I drop it. Now you don't want to do this too much because then you'll get these weird borders between every subject and whatever your highlights are. So definitely don't overdo it. That's why I like to be more subtle with this. It just makes the sky and every white that you have more even. And if we look at the before and after, you can see that our image already has a lot more contrast. We're able to see much more of the image in a lot more clear way, and it generally just looks better. It looks more complete. So the next thing that we have is this temperature slider and this tint slider. Now what this temperature does is controls the amount of orange and the amount of blue that is in your image. And what this controls is not just the orange and the blue, but your white balance, which is what this is right here. So if you are not sure if your picture is balanced or not, what I like to do is increase this temperature slider all the way over, but then I will slowly decrease it back down until the picture looks good. And then I will memorize that number 5500, bring it all the way over and do the same thing until I think it looks good, which is 4800. And then I will pick a spot in the middle between 5500 and 4800, which is about 5300. And I think that that looks really good. You can do the same thing with the tint, but most modern day cameras are going to do really good at getting the tint right. So I usually will leave it alone, but this image does have a lot of green from the grass and the tree, so maybe I'll increase this just slightly, not a lot. Now the last thing that I'm going to get into is your color mixer. Now this can control the hue of any color in your picture. Obviously we don't have a lot of red except for maybe this on the bike, which you can see we can change like this, but we can change any color that we want. If we wanted to change the orange to a more red, or if we wanted to make them more yellow, we can do that. If we wanted to make the yellows more green or more orange, we could do that as well. If you wanted to increase the saturation for a specific color, let's say that we didn't want as much yellow in the picture, but we wanted a lot more green, you can do that with this saturation point. And the luminance is going to control how bright a color is, not necessarily the saturation, just the amount of light that it gives off. As you can see, this area is a lot brighter, and if you look at the histogram when I do this, it will increase the amount of pixels on this right side. And so I think I'm going to bring this yellow down and maybe this green down a little bit as well. And maybe I'll go back up here and increase the saturation of the yellows, maybe bring the yellows a little bit more towards this side, and I'll bring down the greens maybe slightly as well. And I think I really like the way that this looks. Now, the very last thing that we are going to get into in this series is color grading. Now, like I said, I don't really know how color grading works, but I do know how these panels work. And the way that they work, you can drag this to any part of the color wheel, and it's going to add in color. This is the only way to add in color to an image. And you can see that we have a shadows one, we have a midtones one, and we have a highlights one. So if I wanted for some reason more blue in my shadows, I can do that. And you can see that this part of the image is a lot more blue. If I wanted to add maybe some orange into the midtones, I can do that as well. And if I wanted to add, I don't know, purple into the highlights, I can do that as well. This is what we started with. The picture itself is not very colorful. It looks very flat. There's not a lot of contrast in the image, but if we look at what we've done to it, you can see that it looks a lot better. I like the colors a lot more. Our histogram is much more spread out than it was at the beginning, and you can see a lot more of the image. It has a lot more contrast. It just looks better. So now you guys should know how to use this temperature and tint slider, your entire tone panel, how to use vibrance and saturation, what the difference between those two are, how to use a tone curve, how to use your color mixer, and you should also know what this color grading panel does. Now, this is the first video that I've uploaded to this channel, so guys, please tell me in the comments below, what did you guys like? What do you think that I could do better? What was something that you really enjoyed about this video and you want to see more of? I will appreciate any and every feedback that you guys can give. I am all ears. Now, do not forget to subscribe, because if you are not subscribed, you may never see this channel again. I don't know if the algorithm's going to pick up these videos, so make sure that you do subscribe so that you don't miss those videos. I hope that you guys are excited for them, because I know that I am. But for this video, please like it. Please comment on it. Do anything you can to help the algorithm get this out to as many people as possible. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.